The NBA nowadays is as talented as it ever has been, and it comes with mostly positive results when it comes to the overall production, storylines, and parity of the league. But one glaring negative is that some guys don't get their respective shine. A lot of the time that has to do with the small market a certain player is in, but mainly it's because there's just so much talent in the league nowadays, some guys sadly are kind of forgotten. Dejounte Murray falls into the category of players that aren't talked about as much for both the reasons I just mentioned. He's a part of a mid-sized to small organization in the San Antonio Spurs, as well as there being so many young guards that are doing great things as well. Guys like Trey, Luka, Ja, Mitchell, LaMelo, and even guys like Darius Garland, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Tyrese Halliburton, I believe are getting way more publicity and love than a guy like Dejounte Murray when his stats are comparable or even better than some of the guys I just mentioned. In my eyes, he's one of the more well-rounded players in the league, and he's steadily gotten better every year he's been in the league. It's time that we start talking more about this guy, as he deserves more and more love from the NBA world in my eyes. Today we're going to talk about exactly why he belongs in the conversation with other great young players in the league today. We're going to talk about the quietly great season he's having right now, the journey he had to go through, the situation he's in right now with the Spurs, and my projections for him moving forward. Welcome back to Just the Facts, y'all. My name is Jimmy, and we're on our way to 1,000 subscribers, so it'd be much appreciated to show some love. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe if you want more content like this. But without further ado, let's get into this video. Dejounte Murray, as I mentioned, has been quietly one of the most well-rounded young players in the league, but at the same time, he's one of the most least talked about young guys as well. This season, he's averaging damn near a 20-point triple-double. Currently, he's putting up around 19 points per game to go along with 8 rebounds and 8 assists per game. Only 2 other players in the league are averaging at least 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists this season. Those 2 guys just happen to be multiple-time All-Stars and among the best players in the league. Those 2 guys I'm talking about are James Harden and Luka Doncic. On top of that, Murray also leads the league in steals per game, so he has an advantage over those guys defensively. Not comparing him to those guys because they're just on another level offensively when it comes to scoring and creating, but Dejounte being in the same conversation as Harden and Luka in any debate is very impressive to say the least. There are examples literally within the past couple weeks that suggest that Dejounte has been holding himself to a higher standard more than ever before. Earlier this season, despite the Spurs beating the Lakers by 28 in the game, Murray had a personal disappointing game, only scoring 9 points on a terrible 3 from 16 shooting from the field. He then proceeded to probably have the best 6-game stretch of his career. During that time, he averaged about 26 points per game, 9.5 assists, and 9.5 rebounds on 49% shooting from the field, and he also averaged 2.2 steals per game. He also had a game in that stretch that included a 30-point triple-double with 0 turnovers. The only other player that's done that in NBA history is reigning MVP Nikola Jokic. Enough of the offense now. What I think makes Dejounte Murray a pretty unique and special player is his defensive prowess. From the moment this dude stepped foot in the NBA, he was a naturally good defender. His long and wiry wingspan, along with his anticipation and overall competitiveness, makes it seem like hell being guarded by him. In 2018, he became the youngest player in NBA history to make an all-defense team, with him only being just 21 years old, barely beating guys out like Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, and Anthony Davis by a couple months. This season alone, mind you, we're only at the halfway point. He's already had 13 games in which he's recorded 3 or more steals. His current highest mark in his career was 17. So you mean to tell me this guy's getting better defensively after he already was the youngest to ever make an all-defensive team? Not to mention his points per game steadily increasing every single year for his career. This will be the part in the video where I start projecting how good this guy's going to be moving forward, but I can't do that without looking back on how he got here. The Spurs drafted him 29th in the 2016 NBA draft. His overall offensive game was still pretty raw to say the least. He had to work on his handle, creating space. He had to work on his confidence as a jump shooter as well. Therefore, he fell 29th and was the 4th point guard taken that year. With Tony Parker at the tail end of his career, Dejounte was brought in to try and somewhat carry on the point guard role for the San Antonio Spurs. His rookie year was pretty forgettable as he played sparingly, about 8 minutes per game, in only 38 games. But when Tony Parker took a backseat during Dejounte's second season, it was time for him to really get an opportunity to show what he could do. He took advantage of it, and he showed why he was one of the best young defenders in the NBA. In just his second game as being a full-time starter, the Spurs had played the Cavs, and Dejounte Murray had a breakout game. He put up 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 steals. Yes, 7 steals. His defense was so elite that game, LeBron had to give him props after witnessing Murray's tough defense firsthand. For the rest of that season was pretty solid. However, his individual defense on the stat sheet didn't even do him justice because he was absolutely phenomenal on that end of the floor. So good, in fact, he was honored to the all-defense second team as a 21-year-old. As I mentioned, Dejounte still had a glaring hole in his game, and that was his jumper. He shot only 26% from 3 that season, and even from mid-range, he struggled to find a consistency there as well. That was going to be a point of emphasis going into his third year in the league, but unfortunately, he tore his ACL in preseason, which meant he was out for the entire season. But luckily, Dejounte made a full recovery. Of course, ACL injuries can affect players in different ways, but for Dejounte, it didn't hold him back for too long. He came back to much improved and polished offensive game. He took more mid-range shots and three-point shots than ever before, and I think that was due to him not feeling as good driving to the basket full force coming off the injury. However, I did think that made him a better overall player in the long run. In the season before he tore his ACL, he shot roughly an abysmal 35% from mid-range, as opposed to the year that he came back from the injury where he shot a vastly improved 47% from mid-range. And ever since then, he's been around the mid-40s when it came to mid-range shooting. Over the past 2 seasons is where we've really seen his game go to the next level in every aspect. In the 2019-20 season was a recovery year for him, coming back from the ACL like I mentioned, but then the 2020-2021 NBA season was the one where he started to put it all together. Even last year, with number 1 option DeMar DeRozan on the team, Dejounte upped his scoring from 11 to 16 points per game while staying relatively efficient, shooting around 45% from the field. And even this season is where his scoring jumped to 19 points per game, and he still stays relatively efficient and raising up his assists from 5 assists last year up to 9 this season. He's only one of 3 players this season to put up a game with 13 assists and 0 turnovers. The other 2 guys are 2 of the best guards of this generation in CP3 and James Harden. Oh, and that's just on the offensive side. Defensively, Dejounte is in the elite category when it comes to perimeter defense. There was a game this season when he was the primary defender on Steph Curry, holding him to 3 of 13 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3, and going along with 2 steals. However, all this recent success for Dejounte has come with the lack of team success from the Spurs. This season, they're currently 17-28, sitting at the 12th seed at the time I'm recording this video. It's sad that Murray's ascension and success has to come at this time, where the guys around him aren't as good and the team is in rebuild mode, but that's part of why Dejounte isn't getting as much love as he probably should. I mean, when you have starting lineups like this, I don't think you're going to expect to win too many games, let's just be honest. So unfortunately, I don't see Murray becoming an all-star this season. The Spurs aren't very good, and also because there's just so much talent on display every single night, and it's inevitable that multiple guys will get snubbed from the all-star game, all NBA teams, etc. That's just how it is nowadays. I think peak Dejounte Murray is not too far off from what we're seeing right now. I don't see him being a number 1 guy on a championship team or anything. Hell, I don't even see him as being a number 2 guy in that scenario. But that's okay. Look at a guy like Jrue Holiday. He was and still is a number 3 option on a championship level team in the Bucks. He's a guy that can score from 17 to 19 points per game, dish out 7-8 assists while orchestrating the offense as an above-average playmaker, and a guy that plays elite perimeter defense on a nightly basis. That sounds very familiar. Oh yeah, that kind of sounds like Dejounte Murray. His offensive game is still kind of wishy-washy in my eyes, so the ball being in the hands of 1 or even 2 prolific scorers would be more ideal for him and the team. But with that being said, how do you guys feel about Dejounte Murray and his game overall, and how it's grown over the years? What are your projections for the guy moving forward, and what potential team or even players do you think he will be a good fit on in the future? But anyways, this is Jimmy from Just the Facts. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. It'll be much appreciated if y'all share this content as well. But I'm signing out. Peace.